Okay, good morning, Charles. Thank you so much for your time today with me.
Good morning, Swati. Always good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. I know we go a long way, a couple of years back when we did the hackathon for AI
Yes.
for girls. I want to start off for my audience with a little bit of background about yourself. I've always considered you to be the security expert. Can you please briefly introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah, Charles Britt. I am the CEO and also the founder of Cyber Jedi, which is my own independent consulting company. I provide cybersecurity consulting, but also training and career coaching for individuals that would like to work in the cybersecurity workforce. My specialty within the cybersecurity field is GRC, or governance, risk, and compliance. And by day, when I'm not running my own practice, I am also the coordinator for GRC for Fairfax County Public Schools. I've got over 20 years of experience in IT and cyber, again, mostly in that governance and security management space. And I've worked both in the private sector as well as the federal government.
Wonderful. I love the name, the Cyber Jedi. Like it's Jedi mind tricks, but not really, right?
Not really, no.
Yeah, yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much. So I've been doing a video series about how to implement generative AI in an organization, medium-sized to large corporations, and what are some considerations. And this has been a series I've been posting. So this is a very pertinent topic in that
Yes.
series about the privacy and security concerns. I think what I'm hearing the narrative in the industry from CIOs and other C-suite folks is that there's a lot of concern about security and privacy. And today I want to demystify that as to what are some things within the control. And since you're talking about risk and compliance, all these are
Yes.
part and parcel of implementing AI. So
Mhm.
right off the bat, I want to ask you, so what are some security considerations organizations have to make sure when they're implementing generative AI?
Sure. So one of the first things an organization must consider, and I'm actually in the throngs of this now, thinking about how we implement AI within our organization, is you've got to come up with a policy. You have to establish how your organization will use AI, generative AI, within the environment, who will have access to it, what it'll be used for, and also how will you report out or guarantee that the generative AI services that you are using also meet your security requirements within your company, because you don't have control over that data. The policy is the first thing. Second is communicating to your users what they can and cannot do on the platform, what information they should put in the platform, what information they shouldn't put in the platform, to ensure that you're not exposing sensitive information that's related to the company or PII and other types of information you don't want to be ingested into the system. And then a part of this now learning model because it is taking that data and using it to then produce future results. And lastly, it's taking a look at best practices for securing the package or platform that you're using. Much like most of us, when we use our mobile devices and then we get an update and we get these terms and conditions, we oftentimes don't read them. So taking time to read the terms and conditions, understanding the privacy policy of that particular product, and then taking advantage of the unique settings that you can set both at a corporate level as administrator, but then also making your users aware of the settings that they can change to make sure that, again, that it's meeting your company's security requirements, but also helping individuals feel a little bit more comfortable about having control over their data and information as they're inputting it into this system.
No, that's very good about three things to consider, because one of the narratives that I'm hearing is that companies are putting in policies, sometimes data security tools that might capture the insider threat information
Yes.
and so on. And I think on the other end, diametrically opposite, there might be a small percentage of companies that are totally shutting down the usage of
Yes.
generative AI. And I
Yes.
don't think that, the cat is out of the bag, as the cliche goes. I think even if they shut down, people might use their mobile phones, personal
Mm-hmm.
devices, others.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's good to be more open and have this policy. Like you said, I like the emphasis on communication, because
Yes.
it's not about using or not using, it's about communicating what is the right way to use
Mm-hmm.
things. So I
Mm-hmm.
really like that. And
Very
you
true.
talked a little bit about the PII, so I want to also address the elephant in the room, which everyone's concerned about, the privacy
Yes.
considerations. So can you talk about a little bit what organizations to think about in terms of privacy, especially if it's Europe, it's GDPR, and
Mhm.
Brazil has its own version of GDPR.
Mhm.
What are some things they have to consider, especially if they're multinational operating in multiple countries?
Well, and that's where it gets very complex because different countries have different laws regarding AI. And some of the research that I was doing, all of them have been evaluating it, taking a look at what are the implications for their citizens, and then updating their respective privacy frameworks and laws to incorporate AI. As you know, here in the United States, we don't have a federal level privacy law that protects our data like GDPR and others around the world. So we're still sort of leaving most of this up to the states to provide guidance, and a lot of them, including California and other states that have really good sound privacy laws, are implementing AI into it. So it's imperative that companies understand those implications for their business. And that's where it gets tricky because you're trying to meet, of course, your goal would be to meet the most stringent, but then the ability for this product or this type of technology to work best is it needs information. So
Mhm.
if there's a way for you to get as much as you can through whatever country or whatever that you're working in, you still can't do that to the extent that you're violating their policies. And there have been some recent incidents where this has become to the attention of the FTC, where they've made some recent decisions about how companies, even in the US, can use it for competitive purposes or repurposing the data that they receive for one reason and using it for something else. So it's imperative for organizations like ours within the K-12 space and other companies that I consult with that you really look at where is that data going. Once that data goes into the system, that learning language model, where's that data go? How accurate is it? The results that it's putting back into giving back to your company, is the data that you're receiving copyrighted? Like there's so many things that you have to consider when implementing the technology to ensure that everyone understands that there are privacy implications that you have to look at, and you can't just take what you get out of the system and then publish it without actually looking at it, making sure it's correct, and then also having individuals consent if you realize that you have consumed or ingested PII.
Mhm.
Something else that I had noted for this particular conversation was the whole notion of transparency.
Mhm.
Are people able to know what you're doing with their data? As you know, laws like GDPR allow people to have their data updated if it's incorrect, or even have the data deleted. And
Mhm.
that's an interesting concept when it comes to generative AI because it,
Right.
again, thrives off of having people's data. So once that content has been, that language has been learned and it's producing results, how do you go back and take one individual's information out of that? Does that change the results of the system? Does it take it out of everywhere, or is it just for a particular period of time?
Right.
And so I think
Mhm.
there's so much work that still needs to be done at both the state, the federal, and national level to really kind of come up with that best work, best framework to actually govern how we use AI. And then the last one would be governance, which is the part of the GRC, is in the absence of not having a clear framework. Everybody's at this point left to do AI on their own. Like, what does my
Right.
organization want to do? What does this one want to do? The Biden administration published AI guidelines for the federal government, but there's nothing for the private sector, for K-12, for certain critical infrastructure industries. So everyone's going to use it for different reasons, but it would help if there were some clear framework and guidelines for what you should do. And many organizations have contributed to that already. But the question is, which one do you adopt? Which one is going to make the most sense for your organization? And how do we ensure that we don't end up becoming the first company that experiences a breach or a severe, breach of PII because we failed to follow these guidelines?
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned K-12, but it is the same conversation that's happening in higher ed. So
Mhm.
I'm back in Georgetown doing my executive MBA and graduating this May,
Oh,
hopefully.
congratulations. Okay.
So, but this is the same conversation even in
Mhm.
higher ed, right? So, with the lack of any government regulation regarding privacy, it's the wild, wild west. So,
Yes.
I think it's in your best interest to take care of it at your organizational level.
Hmm.
I think best to follow as a rough guideline the GDPR, because even though there's
Yes.
no strict, stringent laws in the US equivalent to GDPR, you
Yeah,
still are dealing with sensitive data, and PII
that's correct.
is sensitive data. So I think that you touch upon that. You customize it to your own, but make sure you anonymize the data when it comes to that. Any last thoughts as to if people want to know more about this, what are some spaces that they can go and read about it, or any tools and technologies that you're aware?
Sure. So I know, like I said, the federal government has published guidelines that you can Google to see exactly how the federal government plans to govern how AI is used within the federal government, which is of course one of the largest consumers of data in the world. Also, there are a number of websites out there. I can't think of anyone specific, but I Googled AI and there were quite a few. I know there's an organization called AI for Education or Education for AI is one
Mhm.
place that I've used to kind of even inform some of the work that we're doing within our district and having conversations with other groups. We also talk to groups like the Khan Academy and how they're leveraging it for K-12. So depending on your industry, there's also conversations happening within working groups and within associations about how AI is impacting the industry that you're working in. Of course, like cybersecurity, or if you're in healthcare, definitely look to your professional associations and groups to kind of figure out where they are in that conversation. The other thing is, I think you have to learn it. You have to learn more about it, what it is and what it isn't. I recently attended an event where it was called Tech Duels, which you may or may not have heard of.
Yes, yes, I
Yes,
know actually the person who
yes.
initiated Tech Duels, who is
Okay.
Capital One. So that's
Yeah.
awesome. So you've met Noel.
Yes, and there was a debate about generative AI versus artificial intelligence, and that was one of the first times I really got a chance to fully understand the difference between the two because I
Right,
didn't. I just thought AI was AI.
right,
And so taking the opportunity to learn about what AI is, what is generative AI, and all the different forms of artificial intelligence and what it means for you, and what tools and things would best suit you for what you need to do. You don't have to integrate it. I'm still not on TikTok. I know I'm probably one of those few people in the world, but you don't have to take on everything that everybody else is running toward. But you do have to
right.
understand that it is going to have implications for our workforce. It is going to have implications for the world, for healthcare, for decisions that are made in courts. There's so many places that AI is being introduced, so it's important for you, no matter where you are, to learn more about it. Sign up for one of the accounts, the Googles, the Chat GTP, just to get familiar with the tool. And then, like anything else, use it for good. Stay away
Yeah,
from bad. Use it
yeah.
for good, and then we'll be able to fully harness the benefit of what it's able to bring to the world.
That's the bottom line. Thank you so much,
Yes.
Charles. I think a lot of golden nuggets there. I think what I was hearing this morning also, I was in a meetup, AI working group for the federal
Okay.
government had a meetup. So what I also heard was there's a lot of AI illiteracy. And I
Mhm.
think that's the reason of this thing, the short podcast that I'm doing is to
Mhm.
demystify AI, demystify
Okay.
the concerns around it. The more we
Mhm.
educate ourselves, and I also advocate for usage of AI for good. The
Mhm.
more we educate ourselves, I think the more we are in the know, and the
Yes.
more, the fear mongers are always there. How do you make sure you understand, even if you're not from a tech background? I
That's
think the
correct.
moment is here today that irrespective of your industry and background, and not
Mhm.
necessarily technology, you just get your hands dirty, use ChatGPT, see the power of it, see
Yes.
what it can do and not do. I think there's a
Mhm.
lot of conversations in my circles of what it's not able to do. Yeah, right.
Correct. Yeah.
What can I as a human provide that contextual information,
Yes.
value add what generative AI cannot do, and maybe tomorrow it could do further. But I think the
Mhm.
context helps, and it's better not to be fearful and educate ourselves. So
No, it's
love
very,
that
very
message.
important. It's new to me. I mean, I've been in cyber for quite some time, but this literally has, within the last 3 or 4 months, become the topic of discussion everywhere you go now,
Or not.
about artificial intelligence. Again, it's a buzzword. Like you said, there's a lot of unknowns and people are
Mhm.
afraid, but it's something we want to adopt. It's one of those technologies I don't think we're just going to be able to just wave away.
Right. And
But the more
it's,
you learn about it, it's great that you've offered this platform for people
yeah,
to learn because it can be overwhelming to learn
yeah,
about it.
yeah. And I think my goal is all education and advocacy. And I think,
Mhm.
like, we did the AI hackathon many,
Yes.
many years ago,
Yep.
even before it became the buzzword. And I've been
Mhm.
doing this podcast for many, many years now. So
Okay.
thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. And
A pleasure.
for those of you who want to connect with you, would LinkedIn be a good place?
LinkedIn would be the best place. Feel free to search me on LinkedIn, Charles Britt, or you can visit my website, charlesbritt.com, just one word. And from there, you can also connect with me on LinkedIn and learn a little bit more about my curriculum, learn more about my cybersecurity training and career coaching services as well.
Thank you so much, Charles. Have a wonderful day.
My pleasure. You as well, Swati. Thank you.